Welcome to the show, YouTube friends. Drop your comments and questions in the chat and make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons as we get the inside scoop from the legendary Fabrizio Romano. Here we go. Let's have it. I'm joined by the hardest working man and probably the best looking man on the internet, Fabrizio Romano. Guess what? Qué Golazo begins right now. Welcome along, everybody. Ian Joy alongside the greatest, the one and only Fabrizio Romano. Fabrizio, how you doing?
Hi, my friend. All good, all good. Thank you. Always a pleasure to be together and to speak some transfers, football, many things happening.
Yeah, it's been a crazy weekend, though. I mean, some crazy results. Obviously, the Champions League caught us by surprise as well. What did your weekend look like? I mean, were you sitting watching games? Are you just communicating on your phone? Do you take a break? I mean, what's your weekend like?
No, break is not for me. Break is not for me. It's always with football. And with the crazy Serie A weekend, let me mention, because here in Italy, we are absolutely shocked with what happened. It was like 70 years since Inter, Juventus, AC Milan, and Roma lost in the same days. Incredible! It's really incredible what happened in Serie A. I think a very good weekend for Real Madrid. Again, what they're doing is really special, and so a fantastic weekend of football, and also with some news because Chelsea will have a new director, and this is a really important point to understand how it will change the project, how they will rebuild with Todd Bowley, who is really trying to change everything at Chelsea, and so really interesting weekend.
Well, I think your motto is pretty much the same as mine, Fabrizio. We will sleep when we die. So I live
Yes.
by that. I appreciate it. I love to have you with me. So please make sure if you're joining us, we want to thank everybody else for joining us as well. It's awesome to have you. Please make sure you like and subscribe. If you want to join the conversation, Fabrizio Romano is here with us. So please throw a question in there, throw a comment in there. Join in the conversation. As Fabrizio just mentioned, there's a lot to discuss today, but we're going to start with Atletico Madrid, Fabrizio. I mean, the situation with Antoine Griezmann has been pretty much made clear. Everyone's trying to figure out what's happening with his contract situation, with the transfer situation, the time being restricted. I mean, it seems to be getting out of control. What exactly is going on with his contract situation and why he has been restricted in minutes?
It's a crazy situation because there is this agreement between Barcelona and Atletico Madrid for a 2-year loan. This is the second season, of course. And into this agreement, there is a mandatory clause, a mandatory option for Atletico Madrid to sign Antoine Griezmann on permanent deal in summer 2023 in case he's going to play the 50% of the minutes of the games where he is available. So this is the agreement between Barcelona and Atletico Madrid. But what's the point? Being this deal on a 1-year loan and then the second year was an option activated by Atletico Madrid. What Barcelona wanted is the payment of the 40 million euros clause because on the first season, Antoine Griezmann played the 81% of the minutes in the games where he was available. So they wanted the money guaranteed. But at the same point, Atletico Madrid say, no way, because we have to count also the second season, the second year loan. This is this season. And this is why Antoine Griezmann is almost always entering at the minute 60, apart of yesterday game in the derby with Real Madrid. So there is a big fight between Atletico Madrid and Barcelona. Barcelona want the 40 million euros. Atletico Madrid insisting that they don't have to pay because they can still manage the situation to be open till the end of the season, counting this second season loan. So everything is really complicated between the two clubs. They are now in direct contact, as the Atletico Madrid president Enrique Cerezo said a few days ago. They are discussing, but there is still no agreement because what could be the point? Could be for Barcelona to lower the price and maybe find an agreement with Atletico Madrid for something less than 40 million euros, so around 20-25 millions. But at the moment, there is still no agreement between clubs. The two clubs are in contact to find a solution. I think this is the best way for all the parties involved in the story, for Atletico Madrid, for Simeone, who is in a difficult situation with the player, for the player himself, because he's a top player and it's not easy to play with this kind of situation around him, and for Barcelona, because they would have some guaranteed money without waiting till the end of the season and having a dangerous situation around Griezmann. So really particular story, but at the moment, still no agreement. They are in contact, they are discussing, but still no agreement.
It's great to hear you actually open it up and clarify it because there's a lot of things being said out there. And I'll give you my point of view a little bit, Fabrizio, as well. As a former player, whenever I went into a contract negotiation, I always made sure my agent or the club knew that there should be no restriction on minutes played or being on the bench. Sure, if you want to throw a bonus in for getting on for 2 minutes, that's fine. But there shouldn't be a restriction in transfers. So who makes this restriction? Is this the agent? I mean, is this type of deal normal when it comes to loan deals?
You know what happens? That sometimes in the transfer market, you can have good clubs, good strategy. I always mention Man City. They are never on deadline day signing. Look at them. They're always relaxed on deadline day. German clubs is the same. Liverpool are always pretty good with their strategy. And then there are clubs that are really let's say that the strategy is really confused. Let's say like this, that sometimes they arrive on deadline day and they have to be fast. They have to complete everything in 24 hours, in 48 hours, on the final week. So everything is complicated because of the time. The time is another factor in the transfer market. And this Griezmann story was really complicated between Barca and Atletico, also because of the time. They had to be fast. We know how the situation in Barcelona was not easy last summer with the salaries. And the salary of Antoine Griezmann is a really huge one. So they needed to clarify it as soon as possible. So it was a really complicated story. They had to be fast, and in this story, I think we had this kind of clauses for Griezmann, and this is what made it complicated. But transfer market is not always so regular, especially for Barcelona. If you look, Barcelona are always involved in a deadline story, always. So this is what happened with Griezmann, but I hope for the player they will find a solution, because it's not easy also for him and for Simeone to have this kind of story around Griezmann.
Well, that's a great point you touch upon there, Simeone. I can't imagine being the person who has to go to Diego Simeone and say, hey, you know what? You're probably one of your best players. We're not going to be able to play him for the majority of the game. So you're tactically going to have to change things. Remember that magician that we put in your team? You can't play him. I mean, Is this something that's coming down from executives saying to Simeone, hey, you can't play him?
Yes. This is the case. This is the case because for Atletico Madrid, it's important to make sure that they can manage this Griezmann situation on a financial point of view, because I mentioned his salary, but also paying 40 million euros is a big fee for Griezmann. And with the financial fair play, Atletico Madrid have to be really careful. This is why, for example, this summer they were offered the chance to sign Cristiano Ronaldo and they were not able to proceed because of the financial fair play, because of the salary. So Atletico Madrid have to be really careful. And so they had to say to Diego Simeone, this is the situation with Griezmann, try to manage it in the best way till we find an agreement with Barcelona, or maybe at the end of the season, we will see what happens.
Yeah, you enjoy with Fabrizio Romano right now, our genius expert in all things transfers, and sometimes the contract situations just get so crazy. Rafa Cardenas just mentioned right there in the comment section that he finds it insane that Atleti are putting their best player on the bench. I think we all find this insane as well, Fabrizio. Let me get your opinion on the derby itself. The game did take place. It was a pretty awesome game. Obviously, Real Madrid with their celebrations, the dance and celebration we wanted to see. They won the derby. What was your overall thought in the game? You think the best team won?
Yes, I think yes, and I think Real Madrid are doing something special in general. I think it's really underrated sometimes what Real Madrid are doing. But again, this summer, no backup option for Karim Benzema. Benzema injured, no problem at all. Casemiro joins Manchester United, no new midfielder for Real Madrid. Of course, they signed Tchouaméni, but it was different plan because they wanted Tchouaméni to be a backup option, not a starter. No problem at all. And so what they're doing, what Carlo Ancelotti is doing is really special. They won all the games in this beginning of the season. The approach they have, they're always ready to fight when you need to fight. They're ready to put some quality when they need quality. They have players that are like machines, what Vinicius Jr. is doing, but also many other players, Militao. I think it's impressive how they had the approach to this derby. It was a really tense derby because of the Vinicius story we had for the whole week in Spain, discussing about these statements around Vinicius, his dance. And so it was not an easy game to play at Wanda Metropolitano, especially. It was not the Bernabeu where you have your fans with you, but the Wanda Metropolitano is always complicated with Atletico fans, with this Atletico Madrid energy is always complicated, and they've been great again. So I think, yes, they deserve to win, but Carlo Ancelotti, in my opinion, is a genius. He's really a genius because what he's doing also on a physical point of view, how they are always reacting to the injuries. They're always ready with other players coming on and showing how good they are. So I think Real Madrid are incredible, really.
Yeah, I'm with you, Fabrizio. I thought the game was fun to watch, and you mentioned incredible, but it's also the youth that Real Madrid have going forward, how exciting they are, and some of the stories, obviously, with this group being together after what happened with Vinny Jr. Outstanding to see them stick together, outstanding to see those goal celebrations when they're all dancing with one another, and I think the footballing world was standing behind Vinny Jr. very well indeed. It's the Enjoy with Fabrizio Romano and Qué Golazo. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll take a closer dive into Serie A.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want more magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount+.
Oh, welcome back to Qué Golazo. It's Ian Joy with Fabrizio Romano with you. We're discussing all things transfers. We're getting a deeper dive into Serie A right now. I want to discuss with you, Fabrizio, what's happening at Juventus Football Club. Obviously, as you mentioned at the top of the show, it's been a crazy weekend of results in Italy and Serie A. And it really is the league to watch right now because the competition is so hot. But it's hard to escape what's happening at Juventus right now. No wins in 5-0 competition for Allegri. The pressure seems to be mounting on him. Why is Allegri still in charge of Juve right now?
Honestly, I think just because of his contract, because the results are terrible, but it's not just about the results. It's about how they play. You can't see an idea. You can't see the system. They're changing many players. They're changing many ideas. They're changing many systems because they sometimes start with a 3-back defense. Sometimes they start with a 4-back defense. Sometimes they play with wingers. Sometimes with 2 strikers like Milik and Vlahovic. They always change. There is a lot of confusion. Also, the players are not happy with the whole situation around the team, around the board too. So it's a really complicated situation. But Allegri is staying because of the contract. He has 4 more years contract with Juventus. And it's for 9 million euros net per season, add-ons included, but 9 million euros net per season is a really important salary for an Italian manager, because maybe in the Premier League or, for example, Simeone in La Liga, it's more normal to have this kind of salary. But in Italy, it's not normal to be on a 9 million euros salary per season, 4-year deal. Is really crazy to have that kind of long-term deal with a manager in Serie A, and not just in Serie A, because now around Europe we see that they are always doing short-term contracts, 2-year with an option, but never 4-year deal. And you already spent the season, so it was a 5-year project. And yesterday, the CEO of Juventus, Arrivabene, said before the game, before losing to Monza, never won a single Serie A game in their history. It's the first time in the history for Monza, and they won the first Serie A game with a new manager on his first Serie A game too, against Juventus. Imagine how crazy that is. And Juventus CEO Arrivabene said, for us, it's crazy to think about Allegri being fired because at the moment we have a project with him. But the reality is the contract.
I saw you breaking the news about the contract and the CEO Arrivabene mentioning the 4-year project. I mean, I guess the question I would have to ask would be, why would you give him such a long-term contract with such a big salary? And what exactly is this 4-year project for Juventus? Is it about Serie A domination? Is it about domination in European success? Or is it a business project that they have where they want to make money?
No, they wanted to dominate in Serie A, honestly. Then in Champions League, they know how complicated it is, but they wanted to be back dominating in Serie A. Let's remind that they won 9 titles in a row. It was incredible what they did in Serie A for many, many years. Then it was complicated in the last 2-3 years, but they wanted to be back dominating in Serie A with Allegri. Why that kind of contract? Because Massimiliano Allegri was 1 step away from joining Real Madrid. He was 1 step away from joining Real Madrid. He was really, really close. He was the man for Real Madrid before they decided to go for Carlo Ancelotti. And Juventus, to tempt Massimiliano Allegri, offered this kind of huge contract with huge salary. And so he said, okay, I'm returning to Juventus and turning down Real Madrid. But Allegri turned down Real Madrid after Zinedine Zidane. So imagine how crazy is football. And they won everything with Carlo Ancelotti. So sometimes football is really mad, but this is why, because they had to tempt him with a really important contract. Otherwise, Allegri was going to join Real Madrid.
I want to discuss a little bit about Inter Milan in just a moment, but let's stick on Juventus with this 4-year project. How do they get out of this situation, Fabrizio? I mean, obviously, we recognize that they have a very good squad. They have dealt with a lot of injuries right now, which is unfortunate for them. But how do you personally think Juve get things back on track again? I mean, the business project and the plan that they've had, this 4-year project, is obviously one that they want to have complete domination of Serie A. So do they need to make more transfers? Do you see them active in the winter transfer window? Or do you think that they've just got to get the players that they have playing the best possible way?
I think they need some kind of young player also, because this summer they spent a lot of money on kind of old players. It's not nice to say old, but Angel Di Maria is a fantastic player, but we already saw Angel Di Maria at his best level. And same with Paul Pogba. He was fantastic with Juventus when he was a young player, but now it's completely different, a lot of injuries. So these are fantastic champions, fantastic players, true stars, but with many injuries, with many problems. And so you need also some young player to rebuild your project. And so this is why I think they need to be more smart in the future with the transfers, because this window was not great. They signed Bremer, who is a very good player, and then the injuries. You mentioned they have too many injuries. This is not normal to have more than 11, 12 players injured at the same moment, and we're at the beginning of the season. before the World Cup. This is not normal to have that kind of number of injuries. So they need to clarify something with the injuries. They need players back, because honestly, when you have Szczesny, Chiesa, Pogba, many players of top level out, is really complicated. But I'm sure that when these players will be back, they will have the chance to be back on track and winning games, because this is not Juventus. Absolutely.
I agree with you, Fabrizio, but let me just throw this one at you. It's not an easy one for you to answer. Let's just say Juventus miss out on a Champions League spot in Serie A this campaign. Do they fire Allegri?
I think yes. Yes. I think he's already with this league situation, because in the Champions League group, they have 0 points after 2 games. And so they're in real danger. So I think yes. If they will miss on the Champions League positions at the end of Serie A, I think yes.
All right, let's turn our attention.
Reason, eh? It's also
Go
a financial
ahead.
reason.
I mean, tell us. I want to get into it because it's interesting to me.
If you miss on Champions League in Serie A, you're going to lose a lot of money. It's like 50 million euros. So it's a disaster for Juventus. So I think they would need to change. But at the moment, they're still with Allegri. But in that case, I think everything will be completely different.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that everything kind of comes down to money at the end of the day, but this is a business, and this is what Juventus are. It's a club in deep history of winning and having success, and I can only imagine if they struggle to make that Champions League slot, the fans' pressure will mount even more, and you're already starting to see the fans being unhappy. Let's talk about Inter Milan for a quick minute. It's an interesting situation, as you mentioned. They were beaten heavily at the weekend by Udinese, who obviously went top of the table for a split second. But Inter Milan, they've sort of struggled. Obviously, Lukaku's come over. He's not been healthy. It's been difficult getting him healthy. What's going on with Simeone there at Inter? Surely he's starting to feel some pressure.
Yes, I think Simone Inzaghi, honestly, is really in a difficult situation at Inter. It's kind of similar to Juventus. They have a big difference that Juventus, you can't feel something clear on the system, because as I mentioned before, they always change the system, the players. Inter have a very clear system. They play with this 3-5-2 thanks to Antonio Conte with the very clear ideas, but they have some problems with the players. They have some problems with the players, some problems with the approach. The approach in Udine was really poor. They already have 4 games lost in Serie A. 4 games in the world season, 1 in Champions League and 3 in Serie A. So this is not possible when you are Inter. The squad is very good. The players are very good. As you mentioned, they have Lukaku injured. He will be back right after the international break. But this can't be the only excuse. It's about the approach. It's about the mentality. So my feeling is that it's a really complicated situation with the manager. He's doing something that is really crazy sometimes. For example, yesterday in the Udinese game, he replaced Bastoni and Mkhitaryan, 2 really important players for Inter, just because they got a yellow card. And this is not normal at the minute 28 of the first half. And you're having a draw with Udinese, so the game is absolutely open. So he's in confusion, I think. He needs this international break to clarify something with the player, to have Romelu Lukaku back. And then we have to see what happens in Champions League. Because for Inter, this Champions League double clash with Barcelona will be really, really important. They have Barcelona and San Siro, and then Camp Nou right after. And in 10 days, they will decide the whole season, I think, because it's about the Champions League. They have the Roma game at San Siro. That is really important for them for Serie A. So really complicated moment. At the moment, Inzaghi is not at risk. It's the same like Allegri. So both of them are not in danger as of now. But I think in 1 month, it will be clear for both Allegri and Inzaghi to see what happens.
Let me ask you a personal question, Fabrizio, because I know for a fact that agents play a big part, and of course players play a big part in spreading rumors. And when players are unhappy, as you mentioned, the story obviously with making 2 quick substitutions in the first half there, nobody likes that. No player likes that. Obviously, you've seen the reaction from Bastoni immediately. I want to know, is there ever a situation where a player would maybe contact you, or an agent would contact you and say, let's start spreading a rumor just because this player's unhappy? I mean, he's clearly pissed off, and we want rumors out there to make sure that the club respect him a little more.
I always like to see the truth, and the truth is yes, it happens. Not with Inter players, honestly, not with Italian players. It's not so Italian, but around Europe, yes. Around Europe, yes. It happens that when they're not happy, they say, okay, we start working, we start approaching the clubs around Europe to say, okay, are you interested in the player and everything? And we want the news out. So it's not just to be respected, but because they want to send, sometimes the agents want to send a message to the player to show to the player that they are already working to find a solution. You know, it's also important for the agent to show to the player that they are working on it. So it happens, yes.
I can only imagine what it's like when you're sitting watching games. You know what's coming. The agent starts to reach out to you. I appreciate your honesty as always, Fabrizio, because that's very important when we're discussing situations like this. I've been there as a player, and trying to put little stories into the media to help the transfer. It's always an interesting.
It's important. Yes,
it is. I mean, I would love to at some point when the transfer window's open, just obviously sit with you and watch you be the master at work, because I can only imagine what people are throwing to you. All right, let's turn our attention to the English Premier League. I know a lot of fans out there want to hear from you. It's Ian Joy and Fabrizio Romano. You're watching Qué Golazo. Please make sure you share a comment. If you've got a question for Fabrizio as well, drop it in the comments. I want to hear from you, so it's important. Make sure you like and subscribe as well, because Fabrizio is a regular with us. He will always bring us the best information. And as we turn our attention to Chelsea Football Club, you tweeted yesterday that Chelsea are set to reach an agreement in personal terms with Christoph Freund to become their director of football. And what more can you tell us about that deal?
Yes, it's almost done. It will be completed, I think, this week already. They are discussing with Red Bull Salzburg to get it signed as soon as possible, but Freund has already informed Red Bull Salzburg of his agreement with Chelsea. It was not easy for him because he's always been more than respectful with Salzburg. He loves the project. He loves the Red Bull group and what they're building. So it was not easy. He already received many proposals from Premier League, from Bundesliga in the last 2-3 years, and he always wanted to stay. But at this point, to work at Chelsea with a new project, long-term project, with a manager like Graham Potter, was really happy to have a director like Freund to work together behind the scenes and rebuild Chelsea. So it was a big opportunity. He has accepted. Everything will be completed very soon, but it's done. Really interesting appointment for Chelsea. I'm not surprised, honestly, because Freund is very good with young players, with talents, with making profit with players. Imagine that he did more than 500 million euros profit with players trading in the last few years with Salzburg. It's really impressive what he did and what kind of players they trusted at Salzburg tend to his work and the world board work. But I can mention Erling Haaland when they signed him from Molde. I can mention Mane. I can mention Naby Keita. I can mention Upamecano. Many players, important players that they signed and then they sold at the right moment. So very smart director, young guy with very clear ideas, very good with data, and this is really important for Todd Bowley. So I think a very smart appointment for Chelsea. It will be official soon, and a very interesting structure now with Potter, with Todd Bowley, who will always be there, and with Freund as director.
We'll get deep into it in a minute with Chelsea Football Club, but why would Red Bull allow this to happen, Fabrizio? Because clearly, as you mentioned, some of the names there, these are young players who have come through the conveyor belt of talent at Red Bull Salzburg. They've either gone on to Leipzig and played Champions League football or been sold for big, big money elsewhere. Why would Red Bull allow an important piece like Christoph Freund to leave and go to a Chelsea? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes, but at some point they know that he really turned down many opportunities because he wanted to stay, he wanted to continue the project. But when it's about Chelsea and this kind of project where he will have real power to decide, this is really important for Freund to have the power to decide many things into the club and into the transfer strategy. He asked them to go, and they know that when a director wants to go, when they make a decision, you can't change the situation. So they tried to discuss with him, to tempt him to stay, to improve the situation around him, to improve the contract, the salary, but it was not about the contract. He wanted something new. He wanted a new chapter, and it was almost impossible for them to change his mind.
Mm-hmm. Matt Osbin's just dropped a comment and asking, is there any information on which players he can help in the squad and which players might be in danger because of this appointment of Christoph Freund? Good question from Matt Osman right there.
Yes, honestly, Matt, I would lie to you if I say some names because he's not at Chelsea yet. So I don't know what he's going to do at Chelsea, but what I'm sure is that he's going to work on young players for present and future. This is the direction. This is the vision for Chelsea. They already signed many important talents this summer, right? Because they signed Gaga Slonina, they signed Cesare Casadei from Inter, many young players around Europe for the future of the club. With Freund, they will continue. But about players in danger, keep an eye on the players out of contract next summer. N'Golo Kante, Jorginho, they have many situations to clarify internally at Chelsea, especially these two players. And so this is really important to see what happens with Kante and Jorginho, because the midfield rebuild will be one of the missions for Freund.
How long do you expect him to sign a contract for? It's another great question dropping into the comments right now.
I think it will be a long one. It will be a long-term contract, so similar as Potter, 4 or 5 years. Because when you start the project with the director and with the manager, usually is always with the same contract. So it will be a long-term deal.
Yeah, Fabrizio, whenever you start a project like this and you bring in a director of football that's had tremendous success, like he has had, Christoph Freund, you could tell that Todd Bowley wants a bigger picture. It's not just about Chelsea Football Club that maybe he's making this appointment. He's also mentioned, following the Red Bull system or the City Football Group system, where we may see multiple football clubs being bought by Todd Bowley and his investment group. Is this the biggest piece in the puzzle, the first step in the puzzle for Chelsea and their long-term plans, making sure that they've got Christoph Freund in place, they can start signing these young players and start to really make some money on these big-time players?
Yes, I think yes. Then this is a very good question, and I'm 100% convinced that this is the direction, this is the vision for Chelsea to try to build something like this. As you mentioned, Freund is very good with this kind of approach. He's very good with young talents, but they already started this process this summer. They signed many players, young players born in 2003, 2002, 2004 in some cases. So they spent real big money on these players. Also, Carney from Aston Villa is a fantastic talent. AC Milan wanted him, and they signed him for £20 million in one afternoon. After 2 meetings, they decided to invest him in immediately. So the direction is already clear to have other clubs to try to build kind of system like the City Football Group or the Red Bull Group is a mission for Chelsea. It's never easy in football, we have to mention. So he needs some time because now he's rebuilding Chelsea. There is a new manager. Chelsea fans, of course, want Chelsea to win as soon as possible. You can't wait 2, 3, 4 years at Chelsea. You need to win immediately. But I'm sure that Todd vision is with Freund and with many other people into the club to have something like that, to have a group and to make Chelsea really great in the next few years.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I spent a bit of time with Ferran Soriano, obviously a part of City Football Group, and what they have done at City has been incredible. And he talked about all of the clubs that they have bought and purchased. And, you know, when I was speaking to him, they just bought another club. That was not too long ago. Do you think it will be long before we see Todd Boehly announce that he is purchasing another football club to add to the Chelsea system?
Not so long, I think. Not so long. Maybe it will take some months. Of course, maybe it will be 2023, but not so long. This is his vision. So I think it's something that could happen soon. I don't know how soon, but it's something that he has in mind. So this will be the mission. And let me say that I agree 100% with you on Ferran Soriano, Chiki Begiristan. What they are doing for the City Football Group is incredible. It's really, really incredible. And they are really smart. They are really good. What they do. I always mention Julian Alvarez as you can be good in this kind of strategy. Julian Alvarez was fantastic for River Plate. He had the release clause, and many top European clubs were looking for a striker, but they were waiting on Julian Alvarez. They decided to invest on him. It was around 17, 18 million euros. And look at him now. Already great with Manchester City. And if you want his value right now, it could be around 50, 60 million. And he played 2-3 games with Man City. This is when you have the strategy, when you are smart with the whole group and with people taking charge of the group.
Yeah, it's amazing. Ian Joy with Fabrizio Romano. You're watching Qué Golazo. We're about to wrap up another awesome show with Fabrizio. Yesterday, you broke the news that Brighton found their man in Roberto De Zerbi. I guess the question would be details of the contract, and is he happy, De Zerbi, to be taking on this deal?
Yes, 4-year deal for Roberto De Zerbi at Brighton. Really interesting appointment, let me say, because this manager in Italy, we know how special he is, because what he did with Sassuolo is impressive. With young players, trusting young players. Many players have been sold to Inter, Juventus, Milan. So many of the players you saw in the Italy squad last summer to win the Euros was also thanks to Roberto De Zerbi, who did an incredible job with many of them. And now, big opportunity for him. He was very good at Shakhtar too. Then it was a complicated situation in Ukraine, so he decided to try something different. But now, with Premier League chance at Brighton, I think is the perfect place for him. They trust young players. He's very good with talents. He has very clear ideas, always playing with his 4-3-3 system, with the wingers to have a lot of quality, a lot of skills. So I'm sure this is the perfect project for him. He's really attracted. He was really attracted by the Premier League since a long time, because he always wanted to try this Premier League experience. I think it's a really smart appointment by Brighton.
Yeah, it looks like a smart decision, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and your opinions on this manager. Did he have any other options, though, before he decided to go to Brighton?
Yes, he had other options in Premier League, other options around Europe, in other countries. So many clubs approached De Zerbi in the last 2-3 months. We had rumors about Inter and Juventus, because we mentioned Allegri and Inzaghi being in danger, but it was never close, because Italian clubs are really worried when it's a manager who was not working in a top club before, and I think sometimes this is not so smart. You need to trust good managers. It doesn't matter about where he worked before, and Roberto De Zerbi was fantastic at Sassuolo, was very good at Shakhtar, and I think he's a very good one for Brighton, because the ideas are really similar. What Roberto De Zerbi thinks of the project is absolutely what they want, and so very smart appointment.
Fabrizio, it's safe to say that when me and you get together, we could sit and talk football for hours and hours and hours. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. I hope you have a relaxing international break. What is your plans over the next week or two while there's no club football?
No, it's always by calling people, meeting with people is always important. It's easy during the summer to have news if you invest on your friends and on your relationships now in September, in October, to meet with people, to call people, to be in touch is really always important. So I will try to relax a bit, but never turning my phone off because I always need to be in contact with people.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate the hard work you put out there. You are simply the best, Fabrizio Romano. Thank you so much for joining us today. And a big thank you to everyone out there for listening to Qué Golazo. Please make sure you take a minute to leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your podcast. We are also available as video, so subscribe to us on YouTube. Visit YouTube, of course. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy. Fabrizio Romano, Qué Golazo. We'll see you next time.